Hello, this is Lynn Fraser with the Radical Recovery Summit 2023. This is our second opportunity for a conversation with Father Joe Pereira. He is a yogi and a Catholic priest devoted to the care, support, and rehabilitation of those affected by chemical dependency and HIV and AIDS. He worked with Mother Theresa. He co-authored a book, The Spiritual Paradox of Addiction. Addicts and alcoholics are often highly spiritualized individuals who lack the faith apparatus to make a healthy connection with their spiritual drive. As such, they turn to negative behavior patterns to fulfill that hunger: alcohol, drugs, food, sex, gambling, pornography, social media, and dysfunctional relationships. In this interview, we spoke about COVID, poverty, HIV and AIDS, addiction, and how the non-spiritual language of yoga can transform us.
Our perspective of life after this COVID attack and has been very significant for many of us. Some of them thrived, others just collapsed. And, so we've got so many friends whom we lost, and many friends who went into depression and very sad. And but we have not only survived, but we have thrived on this phenomenon. I used to cover physically 44 countries. By Zoom, I have crossed 90 countries. So, and that's, I always say life, cosmos, God brings good sometimes out of it. So
Right.
COVID, blessing, yes.
Yeah, right. And also great hardship. So what was that experience like for you in India?
Well, India had an advantage of what they finally discovered, and they called it a herd immunity. We are really, our population is bursting everywhere. And to make people use the mask was quite difficult, but they did it. Now, let me tell you, in the slum that I work, the second largest Southeast Asian slum, on which we have also made a movie, a documentary called The Circle. So that place, there were about 300,000 people who were supposed to have got the virus. Only one man died. Wow. Only one man, yes. So that is the herd immunity. Yes, and then, we did adapt. The poorer people adapted. The richer people could not. It's very interesting.
Yeah. What's your sense of why the poorer people adapted and the richer people were really not?
The richer people couldn't cope with isolation.
Oh, okay.
The richer people also had their resources drastically cut. The poorer people kept getting their, whatever they could work with. They took jobs that were, they did not suffer so much as far as jobs were concerned. But the poorer people that suffered were people who went on an exodus from the city to their villages. And that is where the Indian government miserably failed in reaching out to these people. So we lost a lot of poor people. Now, they are slowly trickling into the city, and but they really lived on practically bare minimum diet. And the poverty line of in India, the people who are below the poverty line and undernourished jumped up tremendously. So yes, I mean, the poor were affected very badly. But in the city, no, they Those who stayed on in the city, they created innovative jobs, and but addiction jumped. There were
Right.
of all the shops that were demanding to be opened, it was the bars that opened. It was
Right.
the liquor
Yeah.
shops that opened, and there were serpentine queues of people for alcohol. And that's very sad. So at the same time, we had to close down for a while, but
Mhm.
we slowly opened it. We opened it and opened our centers, and everything has come back to normal.
Oh, okay. So the centers you're talking about, that would be for recovery from addiction?
Yes, I have
Right.
about 16, 17 in-house centers, but
Okay.
projects, we have over 70 projects all over, like drop-in centers, HIV counseling centers, HIV also drop-in centers, and so that and projects for people in those who are undernourished and all that,
Mhm.
and then projects for sex workers, projects for children of the HIV/AIDS. Many parents have died. Some children are. We have about a little over 1,500 kids who are basically were coming to us as children of victims of HIV,
Right.
uh, and many of them also, tested positive. But today, HIV is absolutely manageable in India because the government has given all free ARTs, so they get their
Mm.
antiretroviral treatment, and
Mhm.
uh, and they're doing well. The people are getting married and getting children, even though they are HIV positive. That way, there's a defiance to any such kind of the human will. There's an indomitable spirit within us that
Mhm.
doesn't get stopped by
Right.
crises like that.
Well, and there was such a worldwide effort to find treatments that worked. I know when you were working on this in the 80s, it was pretty grim. And then they found some treatments, and now that India is providing that medicine free for everybody, that's wonderful. Yeah. Mm.
Except there is nothing for Hep C, hepatitis C.
Oh, okay.
We're having a lot of deaths because of
Oh,
hepatitis
for
C,
that. Right.
but mostly in the Northeast, where there was this needle sharing and all that.
Oh, right. Mhm.
That's a big problem.
Mhm. So can you give people a sense of what they'd find at one of the recovery centers that you have? What is kind of like your regimen or what your
We
treatment?
have we ourselves have come to realize that the first thing we have come to realize that nobody understands an addict. No one understands.
Right.
and and I came to realize that because we were always centering our attention on the afflicted, you know. But
Mhm.
I came to realize that the affected people were more sick than the afflicted people.
Ah,
So
so families.
I began emphasizing codependent programs, family systems therapy. Many people were not really taking the Al-Anon treatment, Al-Anon fellowship seriously, Family Anonymous seriously. So my group of family systems today is a global group,
Mhm.
over 300 people. And every time a person comes with an affliction, I always say, "Where is your affected?" And
Mhm.
affected sometimes in the family, one person will take interest in studying the program
Ah,
and working on one's own codependency. There's a humorous definition of a codependent: doing all the wrong things for the right purpose. And when they come in and they say, "Oh my goodness, I mean, I was doing just the opposite." They hear stories of others and they learn that way. And, this has been such a blessing to me because I miss these meetings. So even tomorrow now, 7 o'clock in India in the night on Tuesday will be for me 6:30, I think. Yeah, 6:30 in the morning. So I'm going to be, or 7:30 in the morning. So I'm going to be. I just keep everything aside. Even yoga in the morning will be finished before, because being with the families, we discover that first and foremost, addiction is a real no cure ailment. That it has it has recovery, but that recovery is a very delicate gift which you have to preserve, you have to nurture it just one day at a time. Today, it was for him, it was yesterday, a young man who, after struggling against this constant relapse, and he's a very good technician, audiologist, and every time he used to relapse, every time. This time when he relapsed after 1 year, and so that even shocked his parents. And so now I said, stay in the center in a protected environment and go to work from a protected environment. And I said, please realize one thing, that you felt that you had completed 1 year, but the truth is we only complete one day. Not 1 year. And if you program your day well, one day at a time, you can cover thousands of days.
Right. What's your sense of why, is it different for younger people now than for people who are in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, 70s? Is there a difference?
Very good question, Lynn. Very good question. In the 1980s, when I started, average age was 45 to 55. Now it is 14 to 24.
Wow.
Yes. And therefore, teaching and they accepting, very difficult. Okay, I'll give you a story of a guy who was for 20 years, 25 years in India on adulterated heroin. We call it smack. Okay. Very bad case. He got married, came to Canada, miraculously gave up. I put him on the program and we were so happy. After a year or two, he starts cannabis. He says, "Oh, I'm not a drug addict. Cannabis is not, the weed is not addictive." See, people from India come to send their children here to Canada. And it was a tragedy that this man brought together 10, 15 youngsters, teaching them to use on weekends cannabis, the weed. None of them have performed. And he was always in denial. His own son has not done well. But 2 weeks ago, he tells me, my son has told me that the weed is addictive. I said, not only is it addictive, but it doesn't help you to reach your potential. Think of that. These people have come here by their mothers and fathers spending millions of rupees just to give them good education. There is one boy who was studying in Newfoundland. 3 years ago, he came here. Today, he's on the streets of Toronto. Streets. He eats his food at the Gurudwara temple, Sikh temple. Can you imagine? And now his parents had never known. You see, they were affected, but never knew how to deal. They had put him into some rehab, and after he came out, 2 rehabs, mind you. So that should have opened their minds. But no, they did not realize. And they thought that sending him abroad will be the right thing. There's a saying in Marathi, my language of my state, that a blind man prays to God for one eye, and God gives him two. So this is what these people came here for
Right.
education, but they just. So now I have to take him back to India, but he's already turned psychotic. And what I'm trying to tell you is, yes, younger generation, very defiant, not ready to take any treatment, and not only in denial but defiance, and they are also associating fun, entertainment, uh,
Right.
rev parties, celebrating weekends. They're all the time having alcohol or drugs. A young girl comes to India and goes into bars. Guess what happened? Gang raped in Vancouver, gang raped. And then she comes back to India in such a terrible state, but in
Yeah.
denial. It's in denial. So it's a major problem. We have to be together in a sense that we have to stop thinking that they are a problem. We have to start thinking that we are part of the problem.
Right. Right. So how do you get the families to really see that they need to do something different?
There are two types of family relatives, two types. One is genuinely open to understand the mind, the heart of the loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Other is judgmental. I'm all right, you're not all right.
Right.
And therefore, we keep those kind of people out of communication with a recovering person.
Okay.
That's you have to get the right atmosphere. The significant other is a vital factor, because only then, when they finish their treatment or whether they get onto the program, they have in the family person who can empathize with them.
Right. And support their recovery.
Yes, support them.
Right. So what do you see in terms of multiple generations and trauma? We know childhood trauma has a big role in this, but then now also.
Yeah. You are using a very important word, which Gabor Mate very much talks about, and it's not only the trauma that our children are having, but we have to look at our own traumas. Parents have had their own traumas, and it's very, very significant that we push those traumas into the unconscious and operate from a totally, totally the whole. Our life is. Let me say, we are hypocrites. I can say this, and let me tell you, I am a Catholic priest, and I tell you, all forms of religion, all forms. I'm telling you this because I have seen the pain of recovering people. Where would they get any understanding in temples, mosques, and churches? No way. All these structures have become empty shells. So there's nothing for them. So our young people get turned off from anything called religion or anything. So we avoid spirituality. That is why yoga comes in. Yoga is the most beautiful spirituality without giving any kind of spiritual tonality externally. But use the body, use the faculty by which you can influence the mind and the soul is the autonomic action of pranayama, breathing. And today, thanks be to God that there are so many scientists started with the Scandinavian countries, and acknowledging the nitric oxide effect. Okay, Now, that's very important because in dual disorders, you have to be able to give people a felt experience, not just intellectually talking and trying to convince. Nobody gets convinced, but shut the mind and come into that faculty that is within us, but we have never tapped that faculty. And that faculty is faith. And it's only in yoga that this faith factor can come in authentically through the body. It's not, the body never tells lies. So the irony of this whole thing is that when yoga came to the West, they left out the faith factor.
Right.
And there cannot be any yoga that, then you reduce it to a mere gymnastics. And yoga is not gymnastics. So in addiction, we realize that there has to be the element of the body. And so I found out, I gave the keynote address on the 75th anniversary of the Alcoholics Anonymous. They had a World Congress in Goa, and so about 2,500 participants. And I told them, that the founding fathers very providentially used the word meditation. In the 11th step, it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. That providential word of meditation brings us Indians to say, where does meditation come? How does it come? It comes as the seventh limb of Ashtanga Yoga. But you cannot just close your eyes and think that you can meditate. No, there is a measurability. Today, in Beijing as well as in Chicago, when I do programs, we have brain mapping. We can see that the brain waves are slowing down, and then you don't have to ask the person. I mean, you don't have to fake it to make it. It is there. You can feel it. The people come out of a session with an aha experience, and that no medication can give.
Right.
So this inclusion of the practice of the program through the body makes people encounter the self, which is basically encountering the indwelling spirit. And that is why the third dimension of yoga is called antaratma. Atma is the soul. So inner soul, inner being. And that's beautiful. And then once you find yourself, once you find God, St. Augustine said, noverim me ut noverim te, help me to know myself so that I may know you. And Iyengar has given me really, I tell you, the tools that Iyengar has given me. I tried to share yesterday in a very mixed class. And I can tell you this much, that in Canada, I can't say this about America, but in Canada, people are thirsting for genuine yoga, for spiritual yoga. And that is why this Kripa Foundation Iyengar Yoga is getting spread out more and more. I've got a project where we train people, especially those who are in helping professions, nurses and doctors and so many. In CAMH, there is a wing where I send yoga teachers to teach, to take over those who have finished their detox and are in aftercare. The best aftercare is yoga.
So you get all these people who are disconnected from their bodies and disconnected from their inner self as well.
Yep.
So what's the process that they go through? Is that, you're talking about young people being kind of defiant and detached, and yet young people are often really interested in meditation. Are they receptive?
But I trick them into meditation. I'll tell you how I trick them. a cannabis addict who was always very critical of his parents, and particularly a mother, going to church, going to devotions and all that, turned him off completely. Then comes his problem with his cannabis. And he shared with me, and I showed him how his brother had given up cannabis early in life, and today he's doing so well. I said, "Where are you? You're stunted. You're not." So I got him to convince him there. And then I said, don't try to use your thinking mind. Your thinking mind is useless. Let's use a faculty within us which will make us take to this thirst that we have for wholeness. All of us want to be whole. We don't want to be sick. So that thirst has to be nurtured in your body. And I said there are three simple formulas. This is Herbert Benson's formula. First is learn to relax. Because all your drug taking is coming from a need that you feel when you are stressed. So learn to relax. It's not easy to relax. So once you relax, the scientist says that you will come to realize that deep down you are all right. And that the medical term for that we use is remembered wellness. Now, if he's a Christian, I connect that with St. John and with Mother Theresa. Mother Theresa always said, God so loved the world that he gave us his only son. And St. John always said, it's not our love for God, but God's love for me. Once you get soaked in that awareness, then springs the third final phase of healing, which is the faith factor. And that faith factor can be measured to such an extent that when you do the meditation that we teach, meditation that starts with the body and relaxation, meditation that takes you into the use of the breath, and meditation that because of the use of the breath, you come into, actually Christian meditation also has this component. It's called via purgativa, which means if you want to meditate, first you have to say goodbye to your senses and your mind. So that that we call pratyahara, and a disposition of dispossession. Once that happens measurably, it has to happen measurably. Then you are ready for dharana. What is dharana? Centering. Dhyana, meditation, and it's beautiful. It's not like I have to make any determination. No, rest. That's the most difficult thing for a modern man to do, modern person to do, to rest. You can't rest. You're all the time preoccupied. So from restedness comes the awareness that I am all right. I am well. From that wellness, I glide into a state that all shall be well. Faith factor. And when they do that, the scientists have measured the brain, have said, one scientist said, fellow scientists, I want to tell you that our brains are wired to God.
Interesting.
A second generation meditator from London, Shanida Nataraja. She's a cellular biologist. She wrote a book titled Blissful Brain. And ironically, what was the name given by the originator of the Yoga Sutras? He called the brain, Anandamaya Kosha. That means a blissful brain. See, centuries ago, he knew that this would happen. And today, science is measuring it, except that the type of yoga that got exported to the West, because they were that time very reductionistic, materialistic. And even today, many people, let me be very frank with you. There are people who are clinging to Buddhism and all other kinds of forms of religion, which are basically no religion, no spirituality. It's all nihilism and all that. And they like that because then they are still preserving their prejudice of materialistic world. That this is the end. That's nothing beyond this. So those kind of people will never understand the core of authentic yoga. Authentic yoga is, as the word says, yuja, to join together, to make one, to make my individual being one with God. So Jivatma and Paramatma become one. That is yoga.
So when we're looking at the state of everybody's nervous systems right now, so with COVID especially, people are more alarmed, there's more fear, like you mentioned before, depression, anxiety. How are people what's the difference, or is there a difference in how you're working with people? Do people have the capacity to really get in touch with their body and kind of connect with
Love,
themselves?
love.
Love?
Teach them to love. I teach them to love themselves first. Even my supreme yogi said, love your neighbor as yourself. So I am very, very clear that if anyone does not know how to love oneself, forget about healing. Now, there is a double dimension of love. One is to really encounter the self, and that is something, it's a gift. I mean, basically, faith, you cannot kind of acquire faith. You can have a disposition of faith, but ultimately, it is a gift. So if you don't have it, it's okay. Take the chapter on We Agnostics in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you will feel comfortable. Basically, even all those who sort of call themselves theists are agnostics. We've never really had an encounter with God. I mean, I didn't have an encounter with God till about 40 years of my priesthood. I mean, I was there doing all rituals and all that kind of thing, talking about God and everything. But by Jove, to have that sense of encounter, that's unique. So if you don't have it, the answer is connect with someone who's walking your same path. That's beautiful. And that, when it becomes a group, it's even better. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there. So collective consciousness. So my response to anybody is try love. Try love. First, love yourself. Try to get in touch with yourself and love yourself. And through that, you can learn how to, because when you love yourself, you never will keep that love for yourself. It will always go out to the other. And this double dimension of love, when you that's the basis of all recovery. Anyone who is really in a state of recovery is filled with love of being one with God. And then in my yesterday's workshop, I talked about shifting from loneliness, which killed so many people during the lockdown, shifting from loneliness to a sense of solitude. You enjoy solitude. Because those who could not get out of loneliness, they either committed suicide or they went into deep depression.
Right. So can you love yourself without being in your body? Like, is the body practices, the yoga and the body practices seem very essential to that. So many people either don't like their bodies, or they hate their bodies, or they just don't feel like they're at home in their bodies.
Yes. And that is why I'm very happy with a lot of mind-body clinics, a lot of doctors, many medical professionals, even psychiatrists, psychologists, psychoanalysts are emphasizing the value of relaxation. So that's the beginning of prayer. That's the beginning of healing. And once you learn to let go, you come to a stage where you have to, in this let go, uh, process of letting go, there's one important factor, which is forgiveness. There are a lot of people who who can transcend everything, but they can't let go of hurt and traumas caused by their loved ones. So forgiveness plays a very big role. Basically, yes, it's a journey from brokenness to wholeness. And ironically, when two or three people share share their mutual brokenness and pain, paradoxically, that empowers them. And that's again Mother Teresa. Don't give from your abundance, but share whatever is your lack of resources. You think that you don't have enough resources. Don't worry, reach out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To be in community.
Yes.
So you can take somebody who's alone and doesn't trust people. Let's kind of circle back into the healing part. So you were talking about Gabor Mate and the effect, and one of his books is When the Body Says No. So
yes.
how do you like, what are your thoughts on that? The whole being in my body, what happens when we're not connected? Like, what's going on with, like, I know you've worked around pain. Do you want to say a bit about that?
There are various ways of breaking that. It's a kind of a prejudice that me and my body are not in friendly terms, or my body is my enemy, or I can never understand my body. I am also angry with the way, why did God make me let's say, a diabetic, and why did God make me, all those kind of things. But when you look at your body as a temple of God, as a access to the God of your understanding, that you don't have to go to external temples and mosques and churches, but this is your sacred presence. And when you look at how do I literally convert people to be yogis? Very simple. See, this is where Mother Teresa and Guruji, for me, have given me the same solution. Mother Teresa said, don't do too many things, but do a few things with love. Guruji said the same thing. Don't do too many things, but do a few things with attention. So sometimes people who don't want to be reminded of their body, So when first and foremost, we have to carry an energy within us of wholeness and holiness, and I truly believe that consciousness is local. So I have had people who did not even want to lie down. They would say, I can't even lie down. And my being with them, my presence, our presence is contagious. And we can really, it's really a tremendous gift. Yoga has brought me into an awareness that the body not only is the temple of God, but it has an infinite capacity within itself. Walter Cannon termed it wiseheit, wisdom in the body. And this is where I can break. Take, for instance, my Cardinal Archbishop. He's a cancer survivor. His physiotherapist told him, why don't you go to that priest who teaches yoga? So I made him sit in a sofa, in a couch, and I counted his breath. His breath was like 30 breaths in a minute. He was going that, Then I gave him the Iyengar bolster. I put him on the Iyengar bolster. And after 10 minutes, I counted his breath, 7 in a minute. From 30 minutes to 7 in a minute. Now, such man who is in his 80s, can realize, when you see, when they taste, see, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting of it. So when you give them a taste of what is this Father Joe's yoga?
Mhm.
Everybody says, yoga is satanic, and what is this Catholic priest teaching yoga? I said, because you know nothing about yoga. There
Right.
are 10,000 different schools, and one worse than the other. Some are unorthodox, which are acknowledged in India also as unorthodox. All these, what you call them, they're really, it's in a way satanic, because in Hindu teachings, though they say about 3 million gods, half of them are not gods, they are Danav. Danav is
Uh,
devils. So
right.
our people get lost in that whole thing. But
Yeah.
pure, undiluted yoga is nothing but wholeness. And wholeness has to have the component of the earth. And the earth is your body.
Uh, do you feel like our bodies are always trying to do their best for us?
No, I will say our natural tendency is to be lazy and to see. It's difficult. Take, for instance, the life
Mhm.
force. The life force is in our spine.
Oh,
But that life force always likes to go downwards. And when it goes downwards, it's all about self gratification, whether it is food and drink, or whether it is sex and sexual satisfaction. If you self gratify, you self destruct. The
yeah.
paradox is that
Mhm.
my supreme yogi said, you want to be my disciple, my sadhaka? First, learn to deny yourself. Then learn to take the reality therapy, which is the cross, and
Mhm.
then be faithful. So the natural tendency of the body is, let me just, I can't. And the more we get older, the more the cellular motivation for correcting the lethargy that has brought in dysfunction in our body becomes very, very more challenging, So it's not easy to deal with the body. I mean, let me tell you one thing, that it's a most difficult uh, area of really putting your motivation into your body. And by the way, the most important component is adherence. And if you do yoga only uh, just on and off, 1 day in a week, 3 days in a week, 2 days in a week, that doesn't work. You have to be committed to the
Um,
practice. And see, I am at the age of 80. I have excellent body condition, metabolism, and I tell you, it is shocking sometimes to people. They can't believe how, but it is sadhana. It's a way of life
mhm.
that you have to learn to die to self gratification, which is today in today's world. This is impossible. In
Yeah.
fact, what does the drug culture do? It's self gratification.
Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. So you're 80 now. What's
Yep.
your plan for the next part of your life? Are you going to
Well, I
continue?
am setting up. Yes, I am setting. I have been covering so many countries physically, going even this year,
Mhm.
covered most of Europe. So many European countries came together in those 5 countries, and here in America, here in Canada, I've had people from North America, from all over, and the Brazilians are coming next week to Goa. So
Uh,
I'm all the time planning to create a sense of wellness, which includes preparedness to let go of all kinds of mind altering and self destructive behaviors, and do it with a sense of love for life.
uh, So how might you guide someone into that?
Yeah, see, this teaching of mine is quite contagious in a sense that if you learn it and if you see that it's so easy in a sense, it is just, see, Guruji has one compassionate dimension which has helped my work. And that compassionate dimension is he has taught me to give people a sense of restedness in the most challenging postures. So you do a posture with restedness, you get the benefits. You do a posture with stress and with all kinds of, exercise thing. It doesn't work. See, we are not here. The yoga is not to just to release the endorphins. The yoga has to bring about first the nitric oxide, dopamine, serotonin, and really also influence the heart in a way that will optimize the HRV, heart rate variant, so many health benefits. So that is why teaching yoga is very attractive to people, because they are fed up of going to different methodologies where you have to externally be controlled, medications and all that. So here it is a self, truly a self-help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
So
your question,
regular.
how do you motivate people? The same as my master. My master, when the disciples came and said, "Where do you live?" He said, "Come and see." So Iyengar has always been, come and see.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you asked me a question. Yes, after maybe another 2 years, I'm not going to be coming visit out. But that is why I've got my yoga sanctuary, where over 90 to 100 countries will come there and get their orientation. So instead of my traveling the world will come there. And so it's a very special project where I really expect people to make Goa for them a sanctuary of healing, and really it's an opportunity for me to fulfill what Guruji wanted me to do and what Mother Teresa wanted me to do.
That's beautiful. So if you were to sum up what you were just talking about for this hour, one of the things I heard you say is that we need to love ourselves and each other, and we need to be consistent in our practice.
Yep. Belief in love is absolutely essential, because belief in love is belief in wholeness and maintaining wellness at all costs. See, the beautiful prayer of St. Francis of Assisi is also integrated into the 7th step of the Alcoholics Anonymous teaching. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. You cannot, if you are on the plane of materialism, it is always tit for tat. It is always conditional love. You do this, then I will give you my love. No, ours is an existential philosophy. Ours is the originative love, like God loves us. You get in touch with my love, and whatever is not appropriate will drop off anyway. And really, I must tell you this, that my worst enemies have come to me, and I have welcomed them, because my formula is, Father, forgive them, for they never knew what they were doing. Understanding comes with Iyengar yoga, where you expand your capacity to absorb whatever may be the condition in the world. It's a beautiful, short, pithy statement. Tato dvandva na abhighataha. In Sanskrit, it means, you say good things to me, I say thank you. You say the worst things to me, I still say thank you. It doesn't.
Right. Yes, that's a big practice to work with that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Father Joe. It's a delight to see you as always.
Right.
Thank you for watching the Radical Recovery Summit 2023. To watch more of the interviews and the clips, and to share with your friends, please go to radicalrecoverysummit.com.